The mind of a child is a chimera of various limitations and misunderstandings. The finer mechanisms of the human brain have not yet clicked on. They don't understand the amount of emotional real estate covered during a person's long life, and thereby are unable to assign it value. Ideas that exist outside their immediate worldview are either too abstract or too complex for them to digest. Things like war, death, and racism are much too saddled with the baggage of history and the interplay of various philosophical conflicts for them to be anything more than an uninterpretable fruit salad of nonsense to a person whose intellectual capacity is maxed out by Grover. This is one of the many things that has made Saga such an interesting book over the years. Normal war here on terra firma is often too large and packed with horror for even the most mature minds to process. Yet Saga takes our idea of war and expands it to cover 2 entire races and the complete scope of the explorable universe. Then it takes this unrelatable and abhorrent thing and filters it through the mind of a little girl. Hazel is the youngest member of a family that has become the target of both sides of this intergalactic war. Issue 31 opens about a year after the events of Issue 30. Hazel and her grandmother have been living comfortably in a POW facility with no knowledge of the fate of the rest of their family. The book opens with Hazel's grade school class in the midst of a show and tell presentation. Each student is supposed to show a picture of something that makes them sad. Some children have drawn pictures of murdered loved ones. Some have rendered images of lost limbs. Hazel has drawn a picture of a foot monster with problematic flatulence. This is just one of the book's many examples of Hazel not being able to understand what's going on around her. While looking for her grandmother, Hazel comes across a group of POWs that has been injured in the war. They're missing arms and eyes. They have a beaten demeanor and a hobbled posture. It is a depressing group of broken people. But when they point Hazel to the restroom after she inquires about her grandmother's location, Hazel just skips past them, demonstrating an undeveloped empathy as she fails to register the suffering of people around her. In the bathroom, she encounters a transgender female showering and becomes confused but unrattled. During their brief conversation, Hazel and the woman cover a surprisingly deep well of topics, including prejudice, gender identity and equality, and how social pressures influence one's feeling of worth. Hazel doesn't have any concept of sexuality or gender, so of course most everything in the exchange goes over her head. Again, she isn't outfitted with the ability to sort through the mature things being thrown at her, but as the conversation closes, Hazel does provide her first intelligent analysis of the adult things happening to her. She posits that if the enemy has placed this transgender female with the rest of the female population, then they must see her as a woman, and thereby can't be all that bad. This is the first time Hazel demonstrates an ability to see grays in the moral spectrum. She acknowledges that the people who took her family and locked her up and are currently killing her people have at least some progressive traits. She has moved from seeing them as boogeymen to just seeing them as men. The final scene of the book sees her understanding of the world bloom further. Hazel's teacher kind of offhandedly gives her an old children's book that her sons have grown out of. It's a fairly tepid act of kindness, yet it throws Hazel into a hurricane of sobs and mourning. The book reminds her of her parents, but not in the abstract way that she's been processing most of the world up to this point. She remembers how her dad smells. She remembers how her mom was an awful singer. She has all these memories, but has never been able to find an appropriate emotion to pair with them. But this small gesture has changed that. She has never known simple, unmotivated kindness, and experiencing it has brought a new dimension of the world to light. Hazel has spent her whole life tangled in violence. Her family has been the center of history's greatest war. She has seen murder and torture. She has undergone all of her maturation either in the shadow of death or in the confines of prison. She has left all that trauma completely unprocessed. And she didn't do this as a way to protect herself or as a way to emotionally barricade herself from the world around her. She did it because she didn't have the cerebral or spiritual hardware to make anything out of what was happening to her. Hazel has always been an unadulterated character set in a world that is looking to sully her. While up to this point, a reader could argue that this was done to portray Hazel as some sort of allegory for the purity of the human spirit needing to persevere through the mire of human cruelty, issue 31 axes that interpretation. Hazel isn't an allegory. Hazel is just a girl who has lived long enough for cruelty to gain context, and for her to find stimuli she has no category for. While much of Saga has been about perseverance and hope and other abstractions, this issue is just about growing up. Not in a coming of age way, but a coming into being way. It's an experience rarely captured in fiction, and it's even rarer to see it captured in such a naked and impactful way.